Oh, hey, good morning, good afternoon, everybody, depending on which part of this beautiful country that you're in. I am Sheila Gunn Reid. I'm joined by my beautiful co-host, who actually happens to be my real life best friend, Lise Merle, in Regina, Saskatchewan. You are watching Rebel Roundup, our daily news and opinion show. And since we've had a long weekend, we've got a lot to talk about. But first, Lise, how's it going?
Good morning, my beloved Sheila Gunn Reid, and hello, Canada. Thanks so much for joining us today. It was an indeed awfully long weekend in Saskatchewan with the rain and drizzle.
Yeah.
Like everybody says, the farmers need it. So I'm just going to go with that. We're giving the farmers what they need in Saskatchewan. But I just can't wait to get into today's show because, as with every long weekend, the news piles up and we get to bring you the juiciest bits. So can't wait to get into it.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, but last week, just sort of as the weekend started, we find out that Carney canceled the tariffs during the campaign and didn't tell anybody. And it was all like,
Mhm.
elbows up, we've changed the relationship with the Americans. It's never going to be the same. And it's like, no, it's quite literally the same because you
Yeah.
canceled the tariffs and then painted yourself as the guy to fight Trump with the tariffs. No wonder Trump wanted you. No
No
wonder.
wonder he did the exact thing that conservatives were saying he was going to do, which was fold like a cheap lawn chair. That is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
And I wonder how liberals are feeling voting for the guy who said that he was going to, stick the screws to Trump, knowing that he folded like a cheap lawn chair. Like I
Yeah.
wonder how they feel about that now. A little bit off kilter, off
Yeah.
kilter. While the conservatives were saying he's lying right here. Like there's no way that he can retaliate the way that he's going to. And then that's not the only thing he did. We're going to get into all of the
Oh
dirty
gosh.
tricks that but the liberal logic just doesn't line up again in this circumstance, and their deception knows no bounds. They will lie right to the faces of Canadians without any recourse. So we're going to talk about all of it right away.
Yeah, during the campaign, Trump turned him inside out like a Timu umbrella in the wind. And he's out there telling everybody that he's the man. How does it feel, Eastern boomers? How does it feel? You guys voted. And again, please don't get all up in the comments saying, Sheila, I'm a boomer that voted for Polyev. I'm not talking about you. But for all you Eastern boomers who are like, he's the man to fight Trump, I just really feel like that's my number one voting issue. Screw my grandchildren and their ability
Mhm.
to own a house. How does it feel now? You screwed your grandkids for nothing.
Yes.
Nothing. Goose
Yes.
eggs.
Yep.
Anyway, let's tell everybody what we're doing because we've
Yeah.
got a lot of Carney things to talk about today. If you are watching us on Rumble, thank you for sticking it out there. That's a great free speech platform, doesn't care about your opinions, which is how I want a platform to be. I don't want them to approve of my speech. I want them to leave me alone. Rumble has been like that from the very beginning. So if you want to support our work over there, you can leave something called a Rumble rant. That's your paid chat. If it's over the $5 US cutoff, Lisa and I are making it mandatory to read your comment and address your
Yeah.
comment on air. If it's under that, we'll do our very best, time permitting. And I mean it. We do our very best. We mostly get to them all the time. Now, if you are watching us on YouTube, I understand the ease of YouTube. I really do. But it remains a censorship platform, particularly
Yes.
on certain things around gender and whatnot. But if you are watching us there, you can leave us a paid chat called a super chat, and the same rules apply. But also, this is past Sheila talking to future viewers right now. You can leave a paid comment on the recorded version of the stream called a super thanks. So we
Thanks.
appreciate you because without you, there's no Rebel News. We'll never take a penny from Mark Carney to hold him to account. And I think it shows in our content, I believe. Okay, let's go into Mark Carney.
Mm.
Uh, his new housing minister, Gregor Robertson, the radical pro-China former mayor of Vancouver. And if you've been to Vancouver lately, parts of it are not very nice and yet outrageously expensive. And for some reason, he was deemed the housing minister, who also said that housing prices shouldn't go down. not understanding supply and demand either. He said, we don't want housing prices to go down, but what we're going to do is bring more housing supply online. Well, what do you think that's going to do to housing prices? Like,
Right.
this is basic economics.
A little bit of a disconnect there. Yeah.
Big time. But Mark Carney goes on a rant about why Gregor Robertson is right. And here's the thing, they don't want housing prices to go down, because there's one thing they can do right now that's a lot faster than building houses, building your Brookfield pods. It's cutting immigration, but they're not going to do that.
Yes.
Let's hear from Mr. Mark Carney.
Is to go down in Canada?
I want house prices to be more affordable for Canadians. And let me explain that. It means a number of things. One, in the very short term, it means getting specific costs out of the price. So for new home buyers, as many people know, and I want everybody to know this, cutting GST on homes, new homes, and ensuring that particularly younger Canadians get the benefit from that. So that's the first thing. The second thing we want is to strip out, and we will do, put in place measures so to strip out, in fact, half the development charges for construction on homes. So again, another measure that in the near term will lower the cost of new term homes, and those lower costs should be passed on to home buyers. The third thing we think needs to happen, and we'll do at scale, is to help develop a much more efficient home building industry in Canada, on a path to a broader doubling of the rate of home growth in Canada. So all of those factors are going to help to improve affordability. The exact level of house prices, of course, is going to be a function of a variety of factors, including where incomes grow. But the key is that we're building new homes, and the purchase of new homes becomes less expensive, absolute, without question.
I just want to figure out where you are, because I didn't hear a yes or no there. We did hear a yes or no from Gregor Robertson, though. He said no. So where do you stand on that?
Well, it's not first off, it's not a yes-no question. It's not a yes-no question.
It was for him, though.
Well, I'm answering the questions right now, if I can. Because it's a question which relates to different time horizons, and it relates to different houses. So we are cutting GST on new homes. Okay. So that affects the price of new homes. That affects the cost, is a better way to put it. The all-in cost for people. It's up to $50,000 savings on the average home price. A little more than that, actually, if you look at the greater Toronto area. So there's significant savings for people. Measures to reduce development charges over the course of the next 5 years, cut those development charges in half. Those lower the cost for those homes that are built over the course of the next 5 years. Those savings will be passed on to people. The overall level of housing prices, though, is not so that amount of activity is not enough necessarily to affect the overall level of house price. It does affect those types of homes and people who can buy those types of homes. Once we increase, as a country, the rate of home building, then that is going to make home prices much lower than they otherwise would be. But that's a medium-term effect, and so that depends where house prices would have otherwise been at that point. So, look, the economy. It'd be lovely if we could always give very simple yes/no questions, up/down question answers to economy. But we're talking about time horizons. What the core issue is, the core issue for younger Canadians, for all Canadians, is that the level of house prices goes down relative to their incomes. So the affordability goes up for them, and both in the medium term and the longer term, that's what we're looking to do. Thank you.
I don't think that I would even get a mortgage from this guy. Like, he doesn't understand, like, he understands basic economics. He keeps talking about how we need to get like these weird regulations out of home building. And so while he was talking and sucking the life out of me, I go over to the federal government's green buildings strategy.
That
was announced in January. So the Canada Green Building Strategy, transforming Canada's building sector for a net zero and resilient future. That makes everything more expensive, by the way. So it talks about how building houses that are that fight climate change or are involved in climate action form the intersection where Canadians' most pressing concerns meet. Climate change isn't even like on the radar. But he's not talking about this stuff. And he's definitely not talking about the upstream steel tariffs if you're trying to build your Brookfield pods for people to live in downtown Toronto in a high-rise Brookfield pod. These upstream climate tariffs on steel are going to make this stuff even more expensive. But he's not talking about repealing any of this stuff. He's just talking around it. And you're supposed to get bored and tune out like I just.
No, seriously. That is what I got from his entire $5 fancy word salad. He said he's cutting the GST, which will create a savings of upwards of $50,000
on new homes.
On brand new builds, yes. But you say $50,000 on a $1 million build, that's a drop in the bucket. Like, take your GST cuts and shove it, Mark Carney.
Or knock them off everything. Young people are not buying brand new builds. They're buying starter homes in older neighborhoods because that's all they can get into. By the way, they like the backyards in the older neighborhoods because you can raise a kid there. Right. But they're not getting into new homes. You're not helping young people.
Nope. And a $50,000 savings on a $1 million mortgage is a pittance. It's an absolute pittance. Then he talks about having the development charges. So development charges typically happen on the municipal level. So Canada, are we ready for the federal government to overreach into our municipalities and start developing all of the policies that the municipalities must pass in order to have the development go. So are you ready to see your mill rates go up? Because you have to make that money up somewhere, right? And so the municipalities are going to suffer, and then they're also going to get bogged down with federal overreach, because we know everything the government touches becomes more complicated, more burdensome, and functions less handily. So, and the mass-produced, government-designed and built homes, I mean, I can't think of anything worse. I literally can't think of anything worse. We see pictures of old-style communist, communist-style housing blocks.
I've been to Poland.
Do we want? Yeah.
Yeah. No, it's dreary and horrible. But also, if the federal government is going to start dealing with municipalities directly, they're also picking a big fight with Alberta because Trudeau tried to do this. And municipalities are a creation of the provincial governments.
Right.
And so when I think it was Edmonton and Calgary, they were going to take money directly from the feds for housing as long as it had all these green crazy requirements. The province stepped in and said, the hell you are. You're not going around us to deal directly with the feds. We'll dissolve you so fast your heads will spin. And so now we've got Carney promising to do the next thing. The same thing that got these municipalities in trouble one more time.
Yep. There's a federal program called the Housing Accelerator Fund. I know a handful of towns and municipalities in the province of Saskatchewan have taken advantage of these federal grants that come in. But what happens is you trade the autonomy of your little village or of your little town or of your municipality for the overarching views of the federal government. Because again, the federal government gives us nothing without taking it away. And these little villages and municipalities in Saskatchewan are being overrun with new Canadians. Because when you accept all that money, they're like, oh, well, look here, we're going to build, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 25, 100 new homes. Well, those aren't for the people that live in those communities
those aren't yours.
Right now. Those are going to new Canadians. And so, well, not even new Canadians, just newcomers. And so, what kind of autonomy are municipalities willing to give away to get their hands on these federal bucks?
Yeah. And again,
it's a big question.
They could just make it more affordable to build a house, stop the climate tariffs, stop the green scheme,
yes, the green
building regulations,
yep,
and cut immigration. And Canada's private sector housing builders can catch up, give them the chance, but they're not interested in doing that. They're going to transmountainify the housing sector. That's what's going to happen, and it's not going to be good.
Oh, it's not going to be good. Nope.
Okay, we also don't get a budget. So they say we're dumping all this money in the housing sector. We're gonna build all these Brookfield pods for you. But you want to know how much it's gonna cost?
No.
Shut up, peasants. We don't have to give you a budget. And here Mark Carney explains why.
There'll be a budget in the fall. In the short term, it's a very short parliamentary session that is coming up. The speech from the throne is on the 27th, as people know. The House is due to rise under the House's rules by the 20th of June, so it's really 3 weeks. We have some very clear priorities, which, as you know from following those who followed the campaign, those who followed my remarks, those who followed my opening press conference, would include the federal government taking all the steps it can to help create one Canadian economy out of 13, in addition, initiatives such as the middle class tax cut. But there will be a budget in the fall.
Two central banks.
Yeah.
Why not present Canadians with a budget at the very first opportunity?
Well, this is in fact based on my economic experience. There is not much value in my judgment, and it's considered judgment, and it's judgment based on experience, that there is not much value in trying to rush through a budget in a very narrow window, 3 weeks, with a new cabinet, effectively a new finance minister, just reappointed, but a new finance minister, rush that through, for example, in advance of the NATO summit, which happens after Parliament rises. So the NATO summit, 23rd, 24th, that is going to be a very important event for the security of Canada, but also it will have fiscal implication. It will have budgetary implications for Canada. That's one example. To have a budget before we substantially advance further our discussions with the Americans with respect to our economic partnership, to have greater clarity around that. I'm not saying we'll have perfect clarity, but to have greater clarity around that. Again, that's another factor. A third factor, one of the things that we emphasized and are working on from the start of this new mandate is improving the efficiency of government spending, looking where we can reduce costs at all possible, and improving the productivity of the public sector. We are launching that those set of initiatives, having greater visibility on that as we prepare a budget. All of those three factors, so defense spending, the economic outlook, including the tariff relationship with the United States and the efficiency, all of those coming together, we will have a much more comprehensive, effective, ambitious, prudent budget in the fall. You do these things right, and that's what we're going to do.
What?
You know, that's a real long, fancy way of saying, right, I just don't want to tell you guys how we're going to waste all of your taxpayer dollars in these next several. You know what? I just want to spend without any accountability. That's
Yeah.
what he actually just said there. And given that our parliament hasn't been sitting for the last, 8 months, is it? We haven't had
Yeah.
a sitting parliament in 8 months. He just wants to continue on his wild spending spree. I mean, I've seen farm wives after harvest spend a little bit of money. You know what I mean? And this is Mark Carney. Mark Carney is behaving like a farm wife right after harvest.
Right. But usually they just go to Scottsdale. Like this is crazy.
Vegas for the weekend, but Mark Carney, holy Hannah! That he says there's a new cabinet and a new finance minister. Well, it's the same as your old cabinet, and your old finance minister is right there. So you mean you couldn't have cobbled?
He died and took the paperwork with him, right? Like it's all there, and Champagne should not have to really get up to speed. Like this is not a learning on the job kind of job, being in charge of our entire economy. But Carney's telling us, no, you know what? He's got to learn on the job. No.
I cannot believe the levels of deception in what he's actually saying here. And that excusology. And then he says the NATO summit's coming up on the 23rd and 24th. Not quite sure where that is, Sheila. Do you?
No, I don't.
But we should be considering what's happening overseas right now, especially in the Ukraine, about how many more of our dollars are going to be funding international conflicts that don't have a lot to do with us. And so he's basically promising that he's going to walk into the NATO meeting with a full bag of gold bricks that belong to the Canadian taxpayer, and we don't know, like he's committing money that he hasn't put in the budget, that hasn't been scrutinized by the opposition. It's crazy. This is craziness, Canada. This is even in World War II and World War I, they tabled the budget. Okay, even then they tabled the budget, and now he's saying it's just a little too much.
It's too much work. It's too much work. Right? We're busy. Okay, what? What are you doing? Like, what is the finance minister busy doing? If not budgeting? What is he doing? Like, I want to know.
Well, getting ready for summer holidays. Number one, I mean, it's really hard to get ready for another several months off the job.
He says, you know what? It's a short session. Okay, so make it longer.
Right, you could work through the summer. Hey, you guys. Hey, parliamentarians. You could offer to work through the summer, considering where Canada is at right now. You could do that. No, but this just begs the question: what are we even paying them for, Sheila? And who is running the government? Because they're not all at work. Who's running the government? Who is making the decisions on behalf of Canada? Oh, and that's scary, man. Like if we've got
unelected bureaucrats
running the show. Okay, like this is going to end well, like it always does.
They keep telling me it's an emergency, but they're like, yeah, well, but it's summer holidays, Sheila.
We gotta go to the cottage. I gotta be at the cottage.
You just told me this is like the emergency of a lifetime, more important than the other emergency of our lifetime, COVID, or the other emergency of our lifetime, climate change, or whatever the last other emergency of our lifetime is. You told me this is the one. This is the one I have to pay attention to, and you're like, yeah, we'll get to it when we get done summer holidays.
Yeah, we're just gonna go. We're just gonna take. You know what? It's been really tough around here. It's been a real rough election season. We all just need to put our feet up for a little while and reset. We just need to reset.
Right.
Deserve that time. It's insane.
Straight. They gotta get their stories straight.
Right. Burn the evidence.
Speaking of going back to the thing we were just talking about, and that was our Brookfield pods.
Yeah.
Olivia Chow, Canada's most comical mayor. She says supportive housing like this at 185 Cummer Avenue in North York can be the difference between spending your golden years homeless or continuing to have a place to call home. This morning I joined everyone to celebrate the installation of the first parts of this modular project. Let's play it because I just love listening to Olivia Chow. I await the Ben Bankus voiceover. I do.
This is exciting because I'm in front of a construction site. It's home to 55 seniors. They're going to move in early spring next year. We're building it, and Green Community Center, a very well-known, very good social service agency, is going to come and operate it. These seniors that are going to be here will get comprehensive support, whether they need mental health or any other kind of services. So, yay! This is exciting.
This looks like a shipyard to me. And don't get me wrong, I love a good sea can. I do. But this looks like a shipyard. And we're housing our vulnerable seniors now in the sea cans. And we're celebrating this as some sort of accomplishment. And what's with the timeline there? A full year? Half of it's built. It's a sea can. You need to retrofit it. That's all.
Yeah. Just know, Canada, that if you spend your entire life contributing to this nation, okay, you work hard, you raise your family, you retire, and then an immigrant takes your housing, that the government will put you in a glorified garbage bin. And Olivia Chow will make a fancy announcement on your behalf. Just know that you did a good job over all those years. Well done. This is the best we can offer our seniors in Canada. This should be an outrage. This should be an absolute outrage that we're housing seniors in glorified garbage bins. Sheila.
These are dumpsters. These are dumpsters with lids. And look, these are things. I love a sea can. I have 4 at my house, right? And living in a sea can, you can make them really nice. but it should be a choice and not the last resort because we can't deal with the housing crisis.
No, the true story. And seniors deserve so much better than this. So much better than this. You're telling me that modular sea cans stacked on top of each other like Lego bricks brought in like on a crane like this is going to be appropriate for seniors that have mobility issues? You think that you think that's going to work out? You think that's going to work out? I think this is a poorly planned thing that Olivia Chow got to do. This is a fun morning out for her to make a fancy announcement. Do I think it's going to be practical? Do I think those seniors are going to be delighted? No, I don't.
Let's keep going because we talked about the budget, which we're not getting. By the way, the Liberals, their ministers, don't know what story they're supposed to stick to because Jolie says, I think Canadians deserve an update. Okay, well, talk to your boss because he just said you're not getting a budget till the fall. And she's like, I think Canadians deserve an update. This is like Carney saying, I'm open to pipelines. And then Guilbeault and LeBlanc saying, yeah, you're not getting pipelines. So this is just more of the same, just a very schizophrenic cabinet happening and very undisciplined. They don't know what's going on. And if they don't know what's going on, Canadians certainly don't either.
Well, no, and that's the crazy thing is that they're skirting accountability. They're purposely skirting accountability so that the Conservative Party, the official opposition, has no idea what they're planning or what they're going to spend our money on. And this is to keep their own butts covered while they do it. So by the time we find out how much of our money they've spent, it'll be too late to recall it. And that's the danger in hiring a sketchy, skeevy former banker who, part of the global elite as your prime minister.
Yeah, the diabolical Davos cabal. Yeah. Speaking of diabolical, Mark Carney issued a statement along with Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, on the war on Gaza. The war in Gaza. This is it. The situation in Gaza and the West Bank. Apparently, they think that Israel should feed the people who continue to hold their hostages. He says, we strongly oppose the expansion of Israel's military operations in Gaza. The level of human suffering in Gaza is intolerable. Yesterday's announcement that Israel will allow a basic quantity of food into Gaza is wholly inadequate. We call on the Israeli government to stop its military operations in Gaza. Oh, okay. And immediately allow humanitarian aid to enter Gaza. They just said they're allowing it. They just are not allowing lavish amounts. This must include engaging with the UN to ensure a return to delivery of aid in line with humanitarian principles. The same United Nations that helped hold hostages, those same UN aid workers. We call on Hamas to immediately release the remaining hostages they have so cruelly held since October 7th, 2023.
Okay, well, far be it to me to point this out, but had October 7th, 2023 not happened, Israel wouldn't have to be doing all of this. They wouldn't be doing any of this.
Give them back their hostages.
That's it right there. The end, period. That should have been the entire statement. Dear Hamas, return the hostages. Thanks. Keir Starmer, Emmanuel Macron, and Mark Carney. That should have been the extent of the statement, but no. Oh, and it just goes on and on and on and on. We oppose any attempt to expand settlements in the West Bank. Israel must halt settlements which are illegal and undermine the viability of a Palestinian state and the security of both Israelis and Palestinians.
This is what Canada doesn't understand and what Hamas doesn't understand. An Israeli life is worth so much for the Israelis. And I think it has to, if I had to crawl inside the mind of the Israelis, it's because they were nearly eradicated during the Holocaust. So preserving Israeli life is first and foremost at all times. Yahya Sinwar, the architect of the October 7th attack, he was released in a prisoner exchange in 2011.
And he
spent 22 years in prison. But here's the thing. He was released along with 1,026 other terrorists imprisoned by the Israelis because they wanted one soldier home, Gilad Shalit. That's what the Israelis are willing to do to get their people home. And so for the Canadians to say, you don't need to get your people home. Were the Brits ever forced to feed the Germans?
For an extended period of years? An extended period of years.
They're at war. You know what? Take it up with Egypt. Egypt shares a border with Gaza. Why do you think the Egyptians are like, yeah, no, we're not doing anything about that border? Yeah, why do you think? But no, they're not taking it up with the Egyptians. Apparently, the Egyptians are entitled to safety and security, but not the Israelis who already lost 1,200 people.
Yeah.
And still have hostages held.
They're expecting Israel to stand down. This is what this statement is saying. Israel stand down. Open the borders between the two groups, and let the Palestinian civilians start to relocate. This is what they're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Relocate to where? Why do you think this is why Trump is saying we have to keep them within the region so they're culturally compatible and not pick them up and take them to America, Canada in this case. They should be going to Jordan, but they're not interested.
And this is just like with this statement with the Prime Minister of Great Britain and the President of France, what they're actually saying to the people of Canada and Great Britain and France is if Israel doesn't comply, expect a whole bunch more immigrants from this area into your countries. This is what they're actually saying. So get ready for it. Get ready for some announcements.
Again,
immigration announcements. Because we need more. We need more people.
In that statement, Carney goes down to laud Egypt for its efforts with the United States to try to find a way to end the conflict there.
Yeah.
But never actually condemns Egypt for saying, no, we're not letting aid in through our border that they share with Gaza, which actually I think is deeper into the ground because the Hamas, which controls Gaza, loves a good terror tunnel. That border's closed for a reason. But apparently the Egyptians are only entitled to safety and security and not the Israelis who were the victims of what constitutes their version of 9/11. Outrageous.
And then Mark Carney goes on to say, we affirm the important role of a high-level two-state solution conference at the UN in June in building international consensus around this aim.
So we're going to reward the terrorists with their own state.
Yeah. That's basically what he's saying. Yeah.
Let's go forward because staying on this topic though.
Insane.
Hamas celebrating Canada, the UK, and France for their statements against the IDF in Gaza. In a statement issued on their outlets, the terrorist group deemed Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu a terrorist and claimed the statement is an important step forward. Well, good job, Canada.
It's always when you're the government of Canada, it's always a good day when you're publicly praised by a terrorist organization. When you're running in those high level circuits, it's just like, hey, guess what, guys, we got an attaboy from a terrorist organization. We must be doing something right. Let's keep on this track. I mean, it is insane. It's actually insane that this is happening.
And
holy crap.
Then they've caused an international incident with the only democracy in the region. Netanyahu says, he posts to X, by asking Israel to end a defensive war, and that's exactly what it is, for our survival before Hamas terrorists on our border are destroyed. And by demanding a Palestinian state, the leaders in London, Ottawa, and Paris are offering a huge prize for the genocidal attack on Israel on October 7th while inviting much more atrocities. Isn't that the truth? You reward them for what they did, you're inviting more of it onto Israel. Israel. And while you are across the ocean not worrying about it. The war began on October 7th when Palestinian terrorists stormed our borders, murdered 12,000 innocent people, and abducted over 250 more innocents to the dungeons of Gaza. Israel accepts President Trump's vision and urges all European leaders to do the same. The war can end tomorrow if the remaining hostages are released, Hamas lays down its arms, and its murderous leaders are exiled, and Gaza is demilitarized.
That sounds reasonable to me.
Fair enough. No nation can be let me try that again. No nation can be expected to accept anything less, and Israel certainly won't. Yeah. You know what? No other nation would be expected to do what they're asking Israel to do. Like I said, would they have expected the Israelis to feed the Germans as the war was in its, or the Israelis, the Brits to feed the Germans as the war was in its dying days? Would they have expected that? Never in a million years. But here we are expecting it of the Israelis.
Yeah, this last line is fire. He says, this is a war of civilization over barbarism. Israel will continue to defend itself by just means until total victory is achieved.
You know what? Good for him for not bowing
down. I like
down.
that energy. That's right. I like that energy.
Yeah, good for him for not bowing down. How long have they been on the job? 3 weeks? These people, and they've caused a major international incident a couple of times over, but now with the only democracy in the Middle East. And by the way, Stephen Harper was the only Canadian prime minister to ever speak at the Knesset, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon.
Who is our foreign affairs minister now?
Is it not Jolie?
No, she was
shuffled off.
Yeah.
Oh no.
I forget. It's okay. It's incidental, but look forward to Canada and the UK and France to continue crapping the bed on this file.
Anita Anand.
Oh, good.
Who signed? She's the one that signed that "We Hate Israel" letter during the campain.
Look forward to the government of Canada to keep crapping the bed on this file.
Completely.
Canada. Yeah.
I think we'll take an ad break right now because we're well over half the way into the show, although we can go a little bit long today. But before we do, I just want to remind everybody, and I should have done it off the top of the show, that our Done Getting Screwed series of town halls, and we are putting more together after 2 very successful ones in Edmonton and Calgary. We're coming to Regina. Lisa,
yes,
why don't you tell us about it?
On June 2nd, Saskatchewan, do join us at the Turvey Centre in Regina, Saskatchewan for our emergency Regina Town Hall on possible Saskatchewan separation. We are going to talk about, with experts, all manners of issues pertaining to the beautiful and brave people of Saskatchewan on a topic that all of us are talking about already. So again, this is 6 p.m. on June 2nd at the Turvey Centre in Regina. You can visit our website, donegetingscrewed.com, for tickets. They're only $5 to keep the riffraff out. Yeah. But all of your favorite rebels will be there, including myself, thank you very much, and my darling Sheila Dunreed, and our Ezra, and a bunch of others. And so it is going to be a fascinating evening, the first our province has had as it pertains to this issue. And I really encourage everybody in Saskatchewan to join us.
Yeah. It's a good way for people to ask their questions, but it's also a good way to remind the big thinkers of this movement what the questions are, right? So that people who have objections will have their questions answered when it comes time, because without I don't think they should have a referendum. I think it's for Albertans and Saskatchewanians to decide, Saskies to decide. But you don't want to have that sooner rather than later, because you need to have an education campaign. And if you don't know what you're supposed to be educating people on, and what those objections would be, I don't think you should go to a vote, because the worst thing that would be a loss.
That's exactly right. And there are a lot of gray areas in this. People have a ton of questions, as they rightfully should. When you think about leaving your nation because your nation has been so toxic and abusive, there are a lot of considerations, and we're here to help you sort it out. So again, June 2nd in Regina, we are going to be so happy to see you guys. So come on, Saskatchewan, come on.
Okay, I'm going to do a few chats and we'll hit an ad break. Justin St. Louis says, cool, I think I just figured out the rants feature, I think you did too. Memory hole, $10. Max Carnage is starting a Doge, haha, more like a dole, Department of Liberal Excess.
Yes. That's so sad and true at the same time.
Funny. Memory hole, $10. Oh my God, shipping containers for seniors. I guess that's better than a tent and an open air toilet in High Park. An IQ over 80 clearly isn't a requirement for public office in Canada. No, I mean, just look at Adam Van Couverden.
That's true. That's true. And Ben Bankus, we are waiting on you to do your voiceover ready. Of that announce, please.
The people are waiting. Okay. Let's hit an ad break and then we'll come right back.
We vote, they ignore us. Alberta's values just don't match Ottawa's, and they never will.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again, and that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA Hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
What if governments are trying to reinvent the wheel when the greatest teacher of all times has already laid out the perfect blueprint for a constitution for a kingdom of love, faith, and freedom? Introducing the Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport. This special edition Freedom Passport captures the foundational truths of love, ethics, and freedom for all. It's a powerful reminder of Jesus' call to love one another and to be part of something bigger that you can carry with you every day. Join the movement, share the truth, and spread the love with your family and friends. Get your Kingdom of Heaven Freedom Passport at freedompassport.ca. And right now, all orders in North America come with free shipping and a free downloadable song with every purchase.
Hey, do you remember how the media party talked about our Canadian flag during the Freedom Convoy of the truckers? They hated it. They hated them singing our anthem. These are the same people who stripped John A. Macdonald off the $10 bill. But now that Mark Carney is campaigning against Trump's tariffs, suddenly Canadian patriotism is cool again? I mean, look at this.
Everyone sees the main threat as the Trump tariffs. And Donald Trump, as we know, has put, as the Prime Minister just said, unjustified tariffs on what we build, on what we sell, on how we make a living. He's attacking Canadian families, workers, and businesses, and we cannot let him succeed. Because when we are united, we are Canada strong.
Funny how that works, but I didn't need tariffs or approval from politicians to stand with Canada. You know, I've been a flag-waving patriot for a while, including when the truckers went to Ottawa. Still am now. That's why we just launched a new merch line called I Didn't Need Tariffs to Start Loving Canada. I like this one with the trucker protest imagery. It reminds me that these now proud, woke liberal Canadians that, well, they're a bit late to the party, and I don't believe them, by the way. Get yours now at Rebel News.
All right, we're back.
Yes.
Oh Okay, we want to go to this X post because I just want to explain it a little bit because I don't think it's clear what's happening in here. So this is from Jasmine Lane. She's a YouTuber. She says, spotted in Manitoba, you have to be a special kind of demonic to advocate for MAiD. That's the government's euphemism for euthanasia for vulnerable people and people who are suicidal. Imagine walking into a clinic for help and being told the world would be better off without you, that you should cave to the lies the devil on your shoulder is telling you, and it would be more affordable for Canada's healthcare system if you were gone. And then she goes into her personal story. Now, I just want to, some people are not quite understanding what's happening here. And Jasmine, unfortunately, wasn't clear, but that's okay. This is a pamphlet that's anti-MAiD. Anti-MAiD for mental illness. It's from an organization that fights against MAiD, medical assistance in dying, killing the inconvenient, thanks to the help of the state. This is a pamphlet that is fighting against it. So then you see a lot of people in Jasmine's comment section saying, no one's saying that we should give MAiD to kids. Okay, but they are, by the way.
But they are. They're working towards it. We are at the bottom part of the slippery slope that those of us that were opposed to this in the beginning were talking about. Because at the beginning, when we were debating this back in 2015, it was communicated to be, you know, something that was empathetic of people who were dying of terrible, awful, painful, torturous diseases, and it was going to give them a quick way out of a unsurvivable terminal illness. And now we have the Canadian government debating whether mature minors, these are kids that are 13 years old, can access MAiD. We're debating whether people with mental illness can access MAiD. So this is, we are on the slippery slope, Canada. This is what we were talking about back in 2015. All it took was 10 years for the government of Canada, I will say they are demonic and evil government of Canada, to go from this is going to be so rare, it's going to be so rarely accessed and used by the people, only the sickest Canadians are going to have access to this, to kids can do this without parental knowledge or consent. 10 years, that's all it took.
That's as we have caught up to the most extreme jurisdictions in the world, like Belgium and Holland, in like warp speed in just a couple of years. So as you said, this went from people whose deaths were foreseeable, usually within 2 weeks of death. Now, to be clear, I'm a natural life kind of girl, conception to natural death. I don't think there's a place for us to meddle in the middle. Now, that's different than saying, okay, I'm fighting a losing battle. I'm declining chemotherapy this time around. Like that's different. That's different than intervening to accelerate the death of a person. But we've gone from that to people who have irremediable suffering, whatever that means. Now, that could be chronic knee pain, 18 months to get a knee surgery, or 2 weeks to have it remediated through medical assistance in dying. See, this is the only thing that you can get in the healthcare system quickly. And then it's gone from that to we're expanding it to people who are mentally ill. How do you determine if somebody needs treatment for suicidality or help with their suicidality, i.e. to make it happen? The government can't figure it out. That's the only reason they delayed it. Not for moral issues, not for saying this is gross, we can't be killing our vulnerable, to saying we just need a little bit of time to figure this out. And then now they are talking about mature minors. Dying with Dignity Canada, who has pushed this from the very beginning, says that mature minors already have the right to make important decisions regarding their healthcare. This includes the right to consent or refuse life-saving medical treatment with special eligibility criteria in place and with appropriate safeguards. What does that mean? Dying with Dignity believes mature minors should be allowed the right to choose MAiD.
This is, I mean, there's actually nothing more evil than any of that, to be completely honest. If you want to see a fine example of demonic behavior, look no further than Dying with Dignity. But this creates a whole nother set of real worries for the parents of Canada, because for years and years, Sheila and I have talked about this. Constantly, for years and years and years and years, we've gender confused young people in Canada have been told that the appropriate thing for them to say if they aren't affirmed in their gender identity is that they are going to harm themselves. And this is just a common sentiment. We had the former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau rush through the halls of Parliament and say kids that can't get gender affirming care are going to harm themselves. You have these ideas seeded in the brains of these tortured young souls who were broken by COVID, who were broken by that terrible time, and now we are opening the door for them to say, well, my gender distress has not alleviated, regardless of whether I was affirmed or not, and I would like to access this program. You want to know the future of all of those trans babies that are being socially transitioned in schools right now, Canada? It is this. This is going to be offered as a solution to them. And I think that the parents that validated their children's transitions are going to have a real hard time convincing their children that this isn't the right thing to do. Yesterday, Sheila shared a story with me about a man who was psychologically broken from a very, very young age, tried to set off a bomb. Where was it, Sheila?
Oh shoot!
It was in Ontario somewhere.
Yep.
Tried to set off a bomb. Accidentally set it off in his own hand. He then served time for it. Came out of prison. This guy came out of prison. Immediately transitioned into a woman, thinking that would relieve some of his mental distress. When really he's just a terribly mentally ill man. And now he wants to access MAiD to alleviate his distress, and that is his mother. And she supports him in this
because she can't back out of it.
You can't be affirming your child's gender will eventually lead to affirming your child's wish to end their life through MAiD. And this is an absolute nightmare for the parents of Canada who are trying everything they can to keep their kids away from this. And yet this is what we're promoting in Canadian schools. It is an absolute outrage. There should be marches in the street to stop this kind of behavior by the government. And yet
there's one more. Just so we can show you how outrageous this is. And this is what twists your head in a knot, right? We know anorexia is a fatal condition if it's not treated, right? It can cause irremediable suffering. It's basically, God, I hate that word, but it's euthanasia through starvation.
Yeah.
Right? Personal euthanasia through starvation. Here's this from Reuters. She's 47. Anorexic, wants help dying. Canada will soon allow it. Because how do you determine, right? How do you determine if she needs help and treatment to live or help and treatment to die?
Well, and this is fast going to become the default. Well, and it is becoming the default treatment for pesky sort of hard to treat illnesses in Canada. And when you open it up to mental illness, when you open it up to sort of nebulous conditions that are hard to put a finger on. I mean, one in every, what was it, Sheila? 1 in every 5 people in Canada right now are dying through medical assistance and dying, and we can just see that accelerate.
It's taken over stroke as the leading cause of death. As one of the leading causes of death. I think it's the 5th maybe leading cause of death, but it is more prevalent than stroke.
In the new country, we're not going to have this.
We're not having this. We will help we'll help our inconvenient and troubled.
We're going to have public service announcements on the television in the new country that say your life has value. Don't give up. We're here for you.
Yeah. And if you want to learn more about Canada's war on the vulnerable, you can watch our documentary called MAiD, M-A-I-D.
You guys.
The Dark Side of Canadian Compassion. A lot of people went into this documentary, including my videographer, producer of the documentary, Kian Simone, thinking, yeah, this is okay. This is probably like something that we should be okay with, to being weaponized completely against it. Once you heard the stories of the families who are left behind and the people who came out the other side.
It is a life-changing film, Sheila Gunn Reid, and I will put that on record right now. It completely changed the way that I view our federal government, and that's not saying I didn't have a ton of trust for the federal government going into it, but in some way, I think in out of self-preservation or a little bit of denial, or I'm not sure what, I did believe that they were interested in serving Canadians and having our best interest at heart. And after seeing that film, I realized just how wrong I was. It is really, really, you guys, MAiD, the dark side of Canadian compassion, is a life-changing film. You cannot watch it and remain rooted in your belief that the government wants the best for you. This is a government that is evil and demonic and wants to end you, because the cheapest Canadian to care for is a dead Canadian. Yeah. And there you have it. Go watch it. Truly, it is life-changing. It is life-changing.
Thank you. Okay, let's move ahead, sort of on the same topic tangentially. This is out of Nova Scotia, Mia Hughes, who is just a great writer. Yeah. She says, Nova Scotia ignores growing evidence against youth gender affirming care. And I think her article is written in response to this horrifying CBC article that reads, you know what, I'm going to send this to you, Efron. I'll give you a second to catch up to me. I did a story on this because...
Yeah, last week. It was excellent, Sheila.
Thank you. I was mortified at it. I was horrified that at the lack of complete scientific awareness. And these are the people who will say that, you know, oh, Rebel News is unbalanced and whatever. But I would never publish something so unscientific as this. I will tell you that much right now. So Mia's article is in response to this abomination here. And let's read through it. And then we'll get to who wrote the article at the very, very end. Nova Scotia Health works to expand access to youth gender-affirming care across the province.
Insane.
In February 2024, a youth clinic dedicated to providing this kind of healthcare opened up in Kentville. Then another one opened up this March in Bridgewater, with more clinics in the works. Remember, you and I listened to that interview with the Ann and Phelim Scoop and McElhaney, Phelim McAleer, they're Irish filmmakers, and they said you used to be able to find one or two of these clinics around the world.
We're going to share that. We got to share that. We got to share that on X. We're going to post that. We're going to post that podcast.
Yes,
we're going to post that podcast on X, because this is a listen that you absolutely can't listen to without having your mind absolutely warped.
You
because
stop it and you're like, yes, oh my God, yes. Because there used to be one or two of these clinics in a country, maybe a handful around the world.
In the world.
There's two in Nova Scotia, like that we can tell. And that's not just the doctors prescribing cross-sex hormones.
Oh, and there are many, many, many private practitioners who do this on the side. You know, like family physicians and endocrinologists, and they have whole networks of healthcare providers that offer these services to kids. But make no mistake, this is not healthcare. When you destroy a child, it cannot be, literally, it cannot be considered healthcare. It is the destruction of a child that they are participating in. And here we have the CBC. Okay, here we have the CBC bragging that it is a good thing. I also wanted to mention, and I meant to leave this in the chat yesterday, Sheila, MacDonald Laurier Institute on just late last week released sort of a group of physicians who are dissenting against this in Canada. So finally, a group of Canadian physicians, I think 16 or 18 or 19 of them, have come out and said, this is not the model of care that we've seen working. We have big concerns about the model of gender-affirming care for youth in Canada. And yet the CBC goes and does a puff piece advertising that this is the best course of action, when if you had like literally two brain cells, you know, rolling around in a frying pan like two peas, okay, never the two shall meet, because of course this doesn't make sense to destroy children in their perfect form. this is never going to be considered healthcare to the vast majority of Canadians. So
Well, and
there we have it. Yeah.
It's not considered healthcare to a lot of the more progressive countries in the world, and we'll get to that in a second. But this completely throws out the CAS reporting
Right.
that investigated the standards of care and said, we can't be doing this to kids. It is not irreversible. And yet, in this CBC article, they say, puberty blockers are a reversible treatment to temporarily stop the progression of puberty, providing a child with more time to explore their identity. For example, through clothing, without the distress that can come through the developmental changes. Everybody has stress from developmental changes, but it is not. It is not reversible. And then they say hormone therapy is partially reversible. That's not true either. There are detransitioners who are saying, like, I was not told about the permanent damage.
The permanent lifelong effects of going on these treatments. And I'm Lee Smurl, and I am an expert in puberty blockers because it's also the same class of drugs that I took for fertility treatments. And I can tell you without a word of a lie that these treatments have long-lasting negative consequences. There is no more powerful a drug that I've ever been on in my entire life.
Yep.
These drugs are used for advanced cancers in men. These drugs are used to chemically castrate pedophiles. Okay, these are not some low test. These are not some low test safe thing that you can just go on and off at your leisure and expect. It disrupts the entire endocrine system of a child. This is their mood. This is their growth. This is their emotional well-being. It erases all of it. It turns them into little blank slates of robots. So if parents are wondering how they can't get their kids back after commencing these treatments, this is why. Their kids are unreachable on an emotional level because the drugs make them unable to form emotional responses. It is insane that Canada is continuing along this path. And here we are
with the CBC, the state broadcaster, publishing this medical misinformation without a word of lie. And this, an unwitting parent, and you'd have to be real unwitting, read this after dealing with a child who's struggling with gender identity, which a lot of kids struggle with, by the way. Do you know what the resolution for gender identity problems with the majority of kids is? The culmination of puberty, coming out the other side. Puberty. Right. And they're blocking it. But if you scroll down to the author, please, and I'm just going to read this without comment because you people at home were smart.
I'll brace myself.
Andrew Lamb, reporter, associate producer. It's at the very bottom of that article, Efron, that you just showed. Oh, wait. Andrew Lamb. Andrew Lamb, she, is a Chinese Canadian and trans reporter for CBC Nova Scotia. They are interested in 2SLGBTQAI+, labor and data-driven stories. There's no data here. Andrew also has a professional background in data analytics and visualization. Andrew also has a problem telling people the truth because Denmark, Finland, and Sweden, Norway, and the United Kingdom have all backed off on youth gender transition. All of them. And they're not exactly backwards Alabama-style places. These are the progressive, many of them socialist style democracies of the world who are saying, nope.
Right.
And that's not noted in here. And Alberta, regardless of what the rest of the country's doing, is also going along with Denmark, Finland, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and Norway on this issue, protecting kids from this nonsense.
And so here we have Andrew Lamb. Okay, Here we have Andrew Lamb validating his own warped beliefs while you pay for it, Canada, with your taxpayer funds for the CBC, while this man gives bad advice to parents and children that will result in the destruction of families. This is what we get in Canada funding the CBC.
Yeah, like this is the stuff that will irreparably harm a child. This isn't like some, as I said in my video, oopsie doodle. Like this is dangerous, dangerous stuff with lifelong implications. That's like saying, you know what? Sniffing asbestos is okay. Just have a good sniff of it, see how it smells. And thinking that there are no lifelong consequences. It's the most crazy thing. Anyways, we've spent some time on that. I think we're still YouTube safe because we only talked about Andrew Lamb and what these countries are doing about gender transition of minors. Let's go.
Thanks for bearing with us, everyone.
Yes.
Thanks for bearing with us through our little rant there. But truly, like it's just we live in upside down world. We live in upside down world, and Canada has 4 more years of this. So buckle up, everyone. We're in this together. Don't quote me on that. It's a terrible thing to say considering what they used it against us for. So anyway.
I think we've touched on everything that was in the YouTube headlines, so we can just talk about the things that we want to talk about. And I want to talk about the great work that our friends over at Blacklocks are doing.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, I do. Blacklocks today published an incredible article about, and this is for the second time in 2 weeks, the federal government learning the hard way that charter rights matter. And last week it was WestJet. So WestJet imposed the vaccine mandate on their employees, including ones that were working from home in the accounting department, because they are a federally regulated industry. So a federally regulated industry has to impose the government's vaccine mandate on their employees. And they did. And that those WestJet employees, or at least that one, won her case for the violation of her religious freedoms. Now, the feds didn't have the opportunity to offload their charter violations onto a private company that's federally regulated. They are responsible for it themselves this time. So the Liberals' own labor board ruled they violated the charter by punishing 2 Christians who refused the COVID jab on religious grounds.
Shush.
These 2 were suspended without pay. And so this is, as I said, first reported by Blacklocks. The federal labor board just ruled that Trudeau's COVID vaccine mandates violated the charter rights of 2 Christian employees of the National Research Council, which was guilty of denying religious exemptions because Ottawa thought it knew better than God, according to me. One Catholic woman refused the jab because it was developed using fetal cells from aborted babies. She told her boss she'd rather die than take it. The result, suspended with no pay, no mercy. Catholics are called to not be complicit in sin. So we cannot participate directly or indirectly in a sin. And so I think she was given the choice of the AstraZeneca or the other one, not Pfizer. And she said, I can't take either one of those. I'm sorry. And they said, yeah, so are we. You're going home with no pay. The next was a man, a Pentecostal IT worker. So we've got 2 people from 2 different denominations. IT worker, he said he hadn't taken any vaccines in 20 plus years. So theirs goes to the sincerity of his deeply held religious belief, right? Mm-hmm. For her, it's this one I can't take. So she's not a radical anti-vaxxer. She's right. Like, it's this one, I can't do it. And for him, he says, I haven't taken any in 20 years because of my deeply held religious beliefs. Mm. And so he said using tissue from abortions, even decades removed from the abortion, violated his faith. Same result, punished. So what I thought was funny was the government judging the sincerity of their beliefs. This is the same Liberal government that says you can be Catholic and still be pro-abortion, pro-transition for minors, and pro-forced flying of pride flags. And these are the ones who are now measuring the orthodoxy of who gets paid and who gets to come to work. Same Liberal government that's
insane.
Stripped charitable status from churches, or that wants to strip charitable status from churches and barred Christian camps from the summer jobs program. But anyways, the labor board cited a Supreme Court decision from, I think, the early 2000s, which said the state is in no position to be, nor should it become, the arbiter of religious dogma.
Ugh.
And then they go on to say, that only 26% of religious exemptions were ever approved for federal employees.
Huh.
So, because apparently whether you are an Orthodox Christian was up to the HR department and not your pastor, your priest, or your conscience. But they lost in court, so they should start writing checks and buckle down for the rest of the cases.
This is what it's going to take. This is what it's going to take, Canada, is for every single person that was unfairly persecuted during this time to take action and make them write you checks. That's what it's going to take across the board. But it's I mean, again, this just goes to show you the depravity of these institutions that would just hold up their hands and be like, just listen, I'm just doing my job. I'm just doing my job. Well, doing your job shouldn't violate the rights of others. If you have to violate the rights of others to just do your job, maybe consider getting another job.
Right. Yeah. And again, it goes to the whole point that if your vaccine works, then why do you care if I'm not? Right.
And like working at home and working at home, right? Like you're completely isolated away from being able to do any sort of risk to your coworkers or to your workplace, and yet they still did this. I mean, it was the era of petty tyrants who were just going to hold out all of those, oh, well, we've got a policy. Oh, well, we've got a procedure. Oh, well, this is the mandate. These are people that would go along with that just to feel powerful in that moment. And it's high time that they start paying for their misdeeds.
Speaking of misdeeds and anti-Christian sentiment, I'm stunned at the anti-Christian nonsense of the husband of Canada's ambassador to Vatican City. Neil MacDonald, former CBC pundit, this is also from Blacklock's, former CBC pundit and husband of Canada's ambassador to Vatican City, deleted a bunch of obnoxious social media posts in which he mocked Pope Francis's funeral, attempted a Hitler joke, and ridiculed conservative voters as bigots and losers. So he did this all on his Substack. It's not like it was like a private Telegram chat or whatever. He was publishing this to his Substack, thinking this was a great idea. And his wife is Joyce Napier. She's an ex-CTV reporter who a year ago became the $200,000 a year ambassador to Vatican City.
Oh, that makes it so much worse. They're showing they're not even trying to hide their contempt. Oh, they're advertising their naked contempt they have for Christians and regular Canadians who may have a little bit of reverence in this moment.
He just started publishing a Substack on April 15th of this year. So, like barely made it a month.
But it just goes to show you, like, these are the circles that these people work in, right? Like, he was speaking to his audience and he thought to himself, because nobody in his circle would object to him saying anything like this. As a matter of fact, they all probably agree with him. And he said the quiet part out loud and thought that he was going to get lauded for it, and got his butt handed to him. Because when you're the wife of an ambassador to the most revered post in the world, which is Vatican, honest to God, like in terms of diplomatic stations, you want the Vatican. Like that's one that you really, really want. And you're the husband. But that he's a former CBC employee. Does this surprise that she is a former CTV employee? Like, does this surprise you, Sheila, that these are their opinions that they let slip out?
None of this story surprises me whatsoever, from the anti-Christian bigotry to the anti-Alberta bigotry, the anti-conservative voter bigotry, and the sense of entitlement that he wouldn't get in trouble for any of it.
Right. And nobody would call him on it. Yeah.
Right. With the side quest of the incestuous relationship between the media and government. And if you are a good, loyal soldier, you'll get a juicy diplomatic post and your goofy husband will be taken along with you. Like, nothing about this story confirms all
Everything.
my biases about the government and
Yeah.
the mainstream media. Like, actually reading this story isn't good for me because I end up being less open-minded about these people than I was before.
And thanks to Blacklocks for putting a big bright spotlight on it for us. But yeah, if you ever need she's the best. She's like a legend, man. Like, I'd like to take her out for a bottle of wine or two one of these days. But if ever you wanted your suspicions to be confirmed that these are a bunch of incestuous elitist arseholes, excuse my language, this is a story for you. You're welcome. You're welcome, Canada.
Here's what he said. After the April 26th funeral mass for Pope Francis, MacDonald mocked the ceremony as plodding and irrelevant, though he was sitting, quote, remarkably close to Pope Francis's coffin. It has no effect on me whatsoever. Then get up and give somebody else the chair. Like, it's easy to mock such ceremony, wrote MacDonald. The outfits, the language, the incense, the deliberation, the logic of priestly celibacy. Then don't be there. Imagine mocking a millennia's old ceremony of particular relevance to 2 billion plus people on the face of the earth, and taking advantage of your close viewpoint to make fun of it, while lacking the self-awareness of someone like me being able to say the exact same things about perhaps the pride parades. It's easy to mock such ceremony, wrote Sheila. The outfits, the language, the incense, the deliberation.
That is such a great point. But imagine what it would. Imagine that we have a prime minister of Canada who claims to be a Catholic, who knows that this happened and didn't immediately recall.
Fire everybody.
That's right. If Mark Carney was a true Catholic, he would be recalling that ambassador and her jackwagon husband home from the Vatican to be put, in the, I don't know, with the further outreaches of Siberia. That's where they would get a posting if Mark Carney was a real Catholic. But we know that Mark Carney
he's not, because of his support of all things gender ideology, and abortion. He wrote about Polyev too. He attempted a Hitler joke, saying of Polyev, there have been, of course, even Hitler comparisons. I'm guessing Hitler's treatment of journalists was somewhat harsher, but whatever. Oh, funny.
That was a real good swing and a miss, sir.
Yeah,
real big swing and a miss.
What a laugh riot. He's just then he calls conservative voters bigots and losers. Seriously, I remain fascinated by what the pro-Polyev, pro-convoy, pro-mega, anti-woke, anti-government, anti-trans, anti-World Economic Forum, anti-migrant, anti-electric cars, anti-diversity, anti-all sorts of other things cohort is thinking this morning. Fanboys in Alberta thought becoming the 51st state was a super keen idea, wrote MacDonald. Polyev himself even aped Trump. Is that it? Aped Trump? Devising clever nicknames for his opponents, peddling 3-word slogans, pissing on journalists, serving coffee to the loutish truckers who made life miserable for Ottawans back in 2022. Actively supporting the F Trudeau geniuses, chewing on apples, denouncing efforts to give the disadvantaged and disenfranchised a leg up. I could go on. Oh, but you won't, Neil, because you deleted it, because you're a loser and a coward. Those loutish truckers bring you everything that you need. And the disenfranchised and the disadvantaged, those are the people who know their children will never be able to afford a house while your wife rakes home $200,000 a year to put up with your nonsense in the Vatican City.
It's just wild. You want to know what they think of you, Canada? That guy just told you. That guy just told you everything you need to know. Saskatchewan and Alberta, do you need any more reasons? That's the best advertisement for separation that I've ever heard, to be completely honest.
Right. He just wrote his conversations with Rosie Barton into a Substack.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is how they talk about you with each other. and they think that that's how everybody feels about us. Anyway, let's do, we were 20 minutes after. Let's do the daily cringe. Now,
okay, it's my favorite.
I just found this after the show started. Actually, before we do the daily cringe, I'm just going to catch up on a chat or two here. Nana Awake says, according to Siri, if you attack Gates, that's Bill Gates or globalists, and refuse, it's propaganda. It will suggest you need mental help. So if you're decent, is AI going to determine if you need MAiD, and you won't be able to refuse.
Nana Awake, I have a story about this. Like, I actually have a story about this. Late last year, I took my son to a walk-in clinic in Regina because he had a pesky ear infection that wouldn't go away. Like, it was just sort of a recurring thing. It would get better, and then it would pop back up, and it got worse. And so we went to this walk-in clinic we had never, ever been at before. And the doctor said, I hope you don't mind that I use, or can I get your consent to use AI to do the transcription of the appointment? And I was like, sure. And so I watched him put the headset on. He asks my son the question back and forth, what does it feel like? How long has this been going on? Whatever. This is for an ear infection. And he goes and sits down at his machine, and the prescription, okay, the promoted prescription pops up on his computer. And I went, wait a sec. The AI is what told you what prescription to give him next? And he was like, oh yeah. And I said, well, just a sec. So does this have the ability to diagnose? Does AI in the medical field have the ability to diagnose? He was like, no, yeah, it does. I mean, I don't use it. I can see that he has an ear infection, so I diagnosed him. But I went, holy crap. This is where we're headed. And so if those AI models, like, just think of this as like a gender confused young person. This is where my brain went immediately. You're a gender confused young person. You walk into a medical clinic with a doctor like this, who is using AI to transcribe your entire appointment. And then the AI pops up with your cross-sex hormones, with your puberty blockers, with what have you. But this could be applied completely across the board. This is the future of medicine, Canada. And it's kind of alarming, to be completely honest. It's really, really unsettling.
Yeah.
It's removing the humanity and the care from medical care.
Right. Michelle Sterling from Friends of Science has talked about this because she is in our documentary. Her brother received euthanasia under the original protocol. He was terminal, and the family was very involved. And she has expressed horror at where it's gone.
True
that there
story.
are not significant guardrails in it. And she's shared a very personal story. And she, like she said, what MAiD was versus what it is now, it's vastly different. And she has brought up the same thing, being concerned about what AI medicine means when they have to consider wait times and dollars, and they don't have that humanity that an actual doctor.
And then you think about, like, just add on to that, the way that Big Pharma operates within our medical establishments. So Big Pharma has a bunch of stock for, say, ear infections, right? For ear infections. Are they going to recommend to you the best course of treatment, or are they going to recommend to you the stock that they have?
Right.
It is crazy. It is crazy, the capabilities of this technology. And I think that we're just on the forefront of it. I don't know. I just think it's so disturbing and so alarming.
Before we go to the Daily Cringe, we have some good news also. More good news as the COVID cases sort of roll their way through court. Harold Jonker, trucking company owner, he has been acquitted of all of his charges related to his involvement in the Freedom Convoy.
Oh, Harold, what a great day.
Yeah, and he was charged 15 months after the convoy had ended. They still went after them.
Petty tyrants. In the new country.
We won't be doing that.
Harold wouldn't have had a single thing, but what a journey. So he was charged in when, Sheila? That would have been
2023. In May 2023, he was charged.
It's a two-year process that he was dragged through.
after he was charged 15 months after. So he was charged with mischief, counseling mischief, intimidation, and counseling intimidation. So many of the same charges that Tamara Leach and Chris Barber were convicted of. So they said multiple trucks that were affiliated with his business, Jonker Trucking, were present during downtown Ottawa during the protest. And so he had a 3-day trial, and he was acquitted just today.
Congratulations, Harold Junker.
Yes.
Here's to a long and prosperous life after this for you.
Yeah, and I should tell people that he was represented by our friends at the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedom. So great lawyers over there, working really hard to advance civil liberties in this country. Now, I think I have to do the obligatory sort of saying, I'm very sorry to find out that Joe Biden has cancer in his bones, right? Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that. I would have liked for this obviously sick old man to have enjoyed his golden years, what he can remember of them, without being dragged into the presidency when it's very clear he has been sick for a long time. Yeah. Not just with whatever form of dementia he's dealing with, but given the state of his prostate cancer and that it has advanced so far. It is my speculation that everybody around him knew for a very long time, because this is an easily diagnosable cancer.
Prostate cancers are known for growing low and slow. They're typically not a sort of turbo cancer or a cancer that gets out of control real fast. It's typically a multi-year, if not decade experience for most men. And listen, regardless of your thoughts on Joe Biden, in circumstances such
somebody's
as this,
grandpa.
Yeah, in circumstances such as this, we just wish him the very best. The end.
Yeah, I'm still okay. I got a couple of these. I don't want to make fun of Joe, but this just got sent to me. Joe Biden says that his mother using windshield wipers to literally get the oil slick off the window is why I and so many damn other people have cancer. This is not even the Daily Cringe, but this is the Daily. Somebody should have put Grandpa out to pasture a long time ago instead of trying to rerun him to the presidency. Jill Biden's the real bad guy here. Jill is bad.
It really does call into question what they were doing in allowing him to rerun, knowing probably, likely, allegedly that he would die had this disease. That's right, that he had this disease long before they were willing to admit it, and that they would be able to install his replacement. This really calls into question their motives. It really, really does. Okay, so and in this moment, go ahead.
It's the windshield wipers that did him in, according to him.
Are we going to watch it?
Yeah.
Okay.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you knew what was happening. You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
No. No.
Told a little bit of the truth there, though, hey? That he had cancer years ago. That's sort of what I hear him divulging in that moment. But that's not the reason. That's not the reason. Prostate cancer is almost always age-related. And it's one of those. It's just one of those things.
Yeah.
If you're a man, you're at risk.
Exactly. And apparently he had full exam cancer screening a year ago. So they knew then, they obviously knew before that, given the problems with his gait, like how he walks. I think he is in a lot of pain a lot of the time. But the left is shocked, I tell you, shocked that Joe Biden isn't physically and or mentally fit to hold the office that he did. And they're wondering why the rest of us didn't say why did nobody notice is what they're laughing about, or they're horrified about. And I'm like, where were you people?
They were seeing the same things we were, but they're stuck
Right.
they're stuck in their circles.
Okay, so here's the Daily Cringe.
Okay.
Trust issue with
There
the
has
voters.
always been a mass trust issue because politicians, media, nobody does what they're supposed to do. Now, I say, for me, listen, he's 83, so he's a little stumbly, he's a little rumbly. I can't point to anything that he's done as that he did.
No,
as
that he's running for his next 4 years.
But I'm saying, I want, not you, but I want somebody to tell me, well, when did you know it was bad? If you knew, why did you wait?
Yeah, so can I get in? He said that it was after he moderated the debate.
Yes, but that's not, I'm sorry, baby, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if you're telling me that hundreds of people knew that he was not able to do his job, then where the hell was everybody?
He did his job. The trust issue.
They were covering up for him. They were covering up for him so they could keep running the show in his absence, in his mental absence, and in his physical. We all saw the way that he devolved over the years. And conservative media in the press were not in the United States. We're not shy about pointing out all of the ways that he was declining in his mental ability. What is Whoopi talking about here? What is she talking about here?
The phone call is coming from inside the house. Like, The View was famous for picking on anybody who said, I don't think he's fit.
Yes.
He's wandering off in the middle of press conferences. There's one thing where I think it's with Macron. He's at an official thing with Macron, and they're all sort of standing for the national anthem or something. And then all of a sudden he just turns and looks the other way. So Macron stops and does the same thing, trying to save face. Like, oh, this is it. Yeah. And then so he's looking the wrong way. Everyone's like, oh, dang. So look what Macron does. Well, I guess. So if you point this out, if you had pointed this out as a conservative, which everybody did, you were some sort of conspiracy theorist. And they're like, oh, you're making fun of his stutter.
There were dozens of examples exactly like this, running up not even running, like we're talking
tumbling up
tumbling up the stairs to Air Force One. There was the time where the
entire debate.
I mean, that was a change in moment. That was an absolute change in moment in the trajectory of the future of the United States, was that debate, because then it was on full display for everybody and you couldn't deny it. You couldn't deny it. The other moment that was really was a changing moment was when George Clooney, famous Democrat, he has supported every Democratic candidate since the beginning of time, and he came out and he was like, something is wrong with Joe Biden. Like, something has definitely gone wrong with Joe Biden.
Didn't know who he was.
But it's really interesting. Like, it took one of their own to say the thing before they would believe them. But they had conservative media saying it for well over 2 years.
At least. And now, again, I just want to add to Whoopi Goldberg's lack of self-awareness. She's now saying, why didn't anybody tell us? What? But very recently, she was saying, you know who should be the Surgeon General of the country? Let's play it, if you could.
I'm hoping Dr. Jill becomes the Surgeon General, his wife. Joe Biden's wife, because he would never do it, but she's a hell of a doctor. She's an amazing doctor.
Why not Anthony Fauci? Why not? If we're just throwing out
why not Anthony Weiner? Just make it up. She's a hell of a doctor. She'd never lead us astray. She's dragging around her terminally ill, dementia-riddled husband to all these events for power. just for power.
No, that's a true story, because you have to, it begs the question, if Joe Biden wasn't mentally or physically capable of running the country, what motivation did Jill have in keeping him installed as president? Like, that is a valid question. That is a valid question. And of course it was to cling to power. Of course it was. Same as our liberals up here.
Exactly.
They're all clinging to power. They're all clinging to power.
Their only ideology is power. And if they tell you anything else, they're lying.
Yeah.
They will do whatever it takes. I mean, look at Mark Carney stealing all the conservatives' announcements because he knows they're
the whole
popular.
platform.
He knows they're popular because he doesn't care about being a liberal. At least if he were a liberal and honest about it, I could respect it, disagree with it, but respect it. But when it's so opportunistic and snaky, stealing the ideas from somebody you just called an extremist like 30 seconds ago.
Smarmy. It's smarmy, isn't it?
It is indeed the garter snake migration season, according to the signs on the highway. Anyway. All right. I think that's it. Efron, do we have any chats left, or should we just wrap the show? We're an hour and 35 minutes in. Okay, he says we're good to go. We're done. Friends, if you like the show and you want to support the work that we do, I'm going to ask you to do two things. If you are watching the recorded version of the show, why not leave us a super thanks? A paid comment, that would be very helpful to us. But there's something that you can do that costs you nothing, and that is just share the stream with a friend to help us get around the intense internet censorship at the hands of the Carney liberals and their big tech enablers. Lise, you're not here tomorrow, are you?
No, I'm not. Unfortunately, guys, I'm not. Canadian powerlifter April Hutchison is coming into Regina for a very special event, and I have to go tend to her and host her in my home city of Regina.
Nice.
But I will be back next week, next Tuesday. See you next Tuesday.
Oh my goodness, I can't believe you said that.
That's secretly of why I wanted to be on Tuesdays. So I could just say that over and over, Tuesdays and Wednesdays. Yeah. I'll see you guys next Tuesday. And Sheila, thanks so much for having me. And I will see you in a couple of hours, I guess. Handful of hours.
Well, everybody, that's the show for today. Thanks to everybody who works behind the board at Rebel News to bring the show to you wherever you want to see it. I know it's not easy to keep Lisa and I on topic and going in the right direction. And as we call for random things, I appreciate that, Efron, Olivia. And thanks to everybody who pitches in a little bit to keep the lights on here, Rebel News. We couldn't do it without you. And I'll see you tomorrow, everybody. And as my friend David Menzies always says, stay safe and stay sane.